we're welcoming today Joél to Chat with Laura and Leah.
Yay.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It's such a treat, like, when we were talking about coming up with this idea, and was like, yes, it's something beautiful that we can put out into the world and share these conversations, but also it's just, like, fun for us to get to hang out with friends and cool people, you know? Which I think is the way forward with life, you know? Like, just melding all those layers together. But thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
And this is our friends-iversary because we met last February, I think.
Oh my God, was that February?
Yeah.
Aww. That's so cool.
Friends-iversary.
It's wild that it's only been a year, but I feel like I know you so well, even though we haven't really hung out that much. I mean, it might be because I've been reading your book.
Yes.
Subtle plug.
Subtle plug. This is so not subtle. Opposite.
But I know how you like to begin every talk with grounding us from where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Joél Leon, Crescent Avenue, 188, Bronx, New York, 10468.
The boogie down.
Yeah, boogie down.
I guess my first question is, and we kind of spoke about this the last time I saw you, is your book is very well written.
Thank you.
And it is very nostalgic for me as a New Yorker. Well, your friend Frederick T. Joseph said I'm not technically a New Yorker, and I feel very offended. Fred, who's going to be a guest on this podcast.
I was there for that conversation, and
I was so offended.
But I've been here for this many years.
And I was born in Queens. What are you talking about?
He was like, he wasn't giving it up.
Yeah, I mean, I love Fred, but like, you know what I'm saying? You were born in Queens. You lived in Queens.
I lived in the city. But anyway.
You're a New Yorker.
Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. What makes it so nostalgic is the language. And I was telling you, I'm afraid that the New York accent and the different boroughs are becoming extinct because actually all of my friends moved out of the city and all the boroughs in the early 2010s because it just was too expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just afraid that it's going to be an extinct accent. And I was asking, did your editor make you change certain words or languages because it's not, proper grammar? And so there's so many layers to this question. Do you feel like you have to code switch when you are at your professional job or when you're professionally speaking? And also you bring up language a lot. A lot of the language we have today, we didn't have growing up. We all kind of grew up in the 80s and 90s. And so I guess it's a multi-layered question. Yeah.
I mean, no, I think, maybe there is some code switching. It's not with the language, though. There's certain topics and things that are going to come up in conversation with the homies or just in more intimate settings that are not necessarily going to come up at work, per se. Maybe. Honestly, I'm a pretty fluid person in that regard. So it's for me, the maintaining of the language is really more or less about honoring myself more than anything else. Even beyond honoring like the culture I come from. There's this notion that if we move away from like our ethnicities and our races and like culture, whatever the case is, like we're all humans, right? We all bleed the same. And like while that is true, I do think for me in an ideal world would be where we leave room for the complexities and nuance of our cultures and language and we learn how to live amongst that, right? So I say that because I'm a New Yorker before I'm anything else. I'm maybe a black man, but I'm a black man, my father. There's all these labels and titles. And these labels and titles require language in order to like lean into them. But New York for me is so. I tell people, even still now, like New York is probably the longest relationship I've been in. And I say that because New York, in and of itself, is like it's a person. It's a person.
An entity.
The energy of the city, and like you don't understand that if you live someplace else that's not a New York or like I think like a Paris, Los Angeles. To me is like another example of that. Maybe Chicago a little bit, but I don't even think so. I think New York feels like New York gives and takes. There's just a whole kind of, sometimes for some people it feels toxic. For me, it's been one of the most loving and enduring relationships that I've had. But so much of that is connected to language, and so I show up as myself with my language everywhere. how I use that language and the extent in which that language gets utilized in certain rooms depends on the room I'm stepping in. But the language itself is always existing. It's just like I might not be like, yo, what up, homie? Like, that might not be the thing, but it might be like, yo, what up, T? Like, because I have a coworker named Tanisha, and I call her T. Like, abbreviating names is very much like a cultural thing. Like, and not abbreviating because we can't say it, but because it's nicknames. Everyone you grew up had a nickname. And that's not just a New York thing, but that is very much a cultural city thing, at least for me, you know?
And then the language, I guess I mean more broadly, because a lot of the things that you went through growing up, you didn't have language for. And now we have language for all of these things like trauma and you know, queerness and all of these words that are just part of our language now we didn't have back then. And so when you were writing this, did you feel like it was some form of therapy because now you could have words to articulate what you went through? Well,
I mean, you know, I think, shout out to therapy. I think being in therapy, and granted, in for transparency, I'm not in therapy right now. But I think the years that I spent in therapy allowed me the ability to then show up in this book with the language and the context, and also the reading, right? The reading and the curiosity around the language, around the relationships, the ones that I had failed in, the ones that I felt like had failed me, whatever the case might be. But I think so much of the writing now was me having processed a lot of it and feeling safe enough to write about it in a way where I do have the language. I feel equipped with the language. I also feel safe enough in my body to share this language. It was really more or less me knowing like there were just these stories that I wanted to tell and these people and places I wanted to pay an homage to. There was just a lot of stories that I felt were necessary. And ideally, I'm hoping that maybe this serves as therapy for some other like young black boys or men. Or anyone who's like has some relationship or connection to men in that way, like the language. But I was only able to do that because I'm comfortable enough with the language in my position in life at this point, you know?
A lot of people don't have access to therapy. I mean, you
Absolutely.
don't have that. You don't have access to all the things that therapy offers.
Absolutely.
And like, we're not at that place in just day-to-day society.
Yeah.
We're getting there, but I think there's a lot of misuse of like words that you're talking about. But yeah, it's just the conversations don't really happen in the mainstream yet.
Yeah.
But putting it in a book, you know, gives access to people.
Yeah, and you bring up something important because like the access is such a big part of it for me. Like when I'm talking about community care, when we're talking about language, you know, it's easy to kind of fall to the refrain of, you know, just Google it, or why don't you know this already? And it's like, you know, we're all on different journeys.
Yeah.
We're all reaching certain apexes, if you will, of like knowledge and understanding in different ways. And so the access part is key because I can give you the language, but if you don't know how to access it, if you don't know how to integrate it into like part of like a daily practice, then the language is moot at that point.
Which is maybe why things get misused.
Absolutely.
Like terms get mental health language gets misused.
Absolutely.
And,
because people are going to Instagram and like they're getting the information and it's helpful, but the lack of media prep and understanding, the lack of critical thinking also leaves us at a point where people are just getting information without actually trying to dissect it. People are diagnosing themselves because we've also kind of been wagging our finger at Western medicine, and rightfully so. But because of that, I think we're also not leaving room to like just hold space for all the things, right? Like, oh, this language matters, but in what context? And you know, people calling people narcissists and all types of stuff, and like you're toxic.
I hear that every day. Like, oh, this person's a narcissist. I'm like, okay.
And it's like textbook.
99% of people are narcissists.
It's like textbook narcissism. It's a very dangerous. It's a dangerous diagnosis.
Everyone has ego, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone is self-centered. Like you have to be to survive, and I think you can pinpoint that and pick at that in a person, and then frame that as narcissism or whatever other diagnosis you want to give. And like that's not the whole person. And I think something I've heard both of you say is I think the difference is intellectually is reading or understanding, even intellectually processing something versus like having it go through your body, feeling it in your body,
and integrating it.
And I think that's like really hard for us in this American culture, maybe all Western cultures, to do. Like we're so severed from that. And I don't know, that just feels like a missing piece that you can't get just from Instagram or wherever, as resourceful as it can be.
Yeah, you know, I like really quickly, like I forget who I was talking to about this, but like, I think about my daughters and how they interact with the world in a way that's incredibly different than like how we did. And so something as simple as, oh, West, my 5-year-old, can pause a TV show and go use the bathroom, right? Or they can just binge watch an entire show and be fine. Like, we'd have to wait a week. And so, you know, and then like a show would end and you'd have to wait a whole summer before we come back on. And so I'm teaching my children patience, and I think patience was naturally ingrained in us because the systems at play, we had to wait for things. Right. You had to wait for food. You had to wait for, like, you know, you had to wait for someone to get home in order to speak to them. There was just an ingrained patience. Like, you just, I was listening to this, I was listening to the audiobook of the book, it's called The 90s. I forget Chuck's last name, but he wrote Sex and Cocoa Puffs, that book that was like really popular in like the late 90s, 2000s. But there's a section where he's just talking about how the difference between growing up in the 90s and what you had access to and what was available to you. Like, having to wait for dial-up, people would just leave home. Like, someone would leave home and you wouldn't know where they were.
Right.
You just knew that
kids.
Yeah, but like, you knew that, like, if your mom went, she's, I'm going to my Aunt Blank's house. You just knew she was going. You couldn't text her.
You couldn't track her?
No, she would get home whenever she got home. Yeah. Your kids had an after school program. They got home when they got home, and then you knew after a certain period of time, it's like, this is too late. And then you call the school, but there's like the waiting that I think we're lacking, which I think is directly correlated to this, like, oh, I have the language, I have the word, and so now I'm just going to run with the word, as opposed to really pausing and dissecting and understanding.
But that's why every single person has a take now, and then somebody takes a take and dissects the take, and it's like, I'm just like, can everybody just like pause for a moment and let the message, let the information kind of seep into your pores for a second, sit with the information, digest it, integrate it, and then you form an opinion? Because it's like everybody's like
there's no study. You remember when you used to study? You study something for like at least a semester, and then you like write a paper on it, and like you formulated your thoughts over time. Now it's just like it's the Amazon Prime urgency thing, right? And it's really mirrored in our beings. Like, it's altering our actual beings and the way we interact with each other.
For sure.
Our system. But I found you through Instagram because you were posting pretty amazing quotes.
Thank you.
Original quotes on your Instagram. And whenever I would talk about you, I'd be like, you know, the guy with the black square and the white quotes, like, so good.
Everybody knows Joél. Literally, I think everyone in my life.
But you actually began your, I guess, career in music. You went to LaGuardia High School, which is, very impressive, by the way.
Thank you.
And you were an MC.
Yes, ma'am.
So what inspired you? I know I read your book, so I know what inspired you, but what inspired you to become a musician and then transition into a writer? Or they're the same, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's the foundation of it. It's like the writing was all the same. I remember a high school teacher who, like, I remember in like English class we were talking about rap, and she was like, rap music is an art, it's not poetry. And it was just like, I remember hearing that and being like, that's interesting that she would say that. But it's because I grew up writing. Like, I was writing poems, but I was rapping. I was always rapping. I was freestyle rapping. I was rapping in ciphers. I was rapping in staircases. I was rapping in my bedroom. It was, and my brother D, you know what I'm saying? Like, D is the one who unintentionally reared me in the school of hip hop, you know, and so much of that was videotaping Video Music Box, videotaping Rap City for him whenever he went to work, and that was my school. That was me studying the art, the culture, like watching these music videos, these really colorful music videos with, you got men dressed up in diapers. There was this like, there were groups called the Bush Babies. You had Foo Schnickens, you know, poor righteous teachers who were very much preaching through the lens of like the 5%er ideology. And so there was just a lot of schooling. I learned learned a lot of language from hip hop. So even to be able to speak about 5%ers and supreme mathematics and all that other stuff, like that feels really esoteric, but that comes from a culture of hip hop and blackness and Zulu Nation. I was never a part of Zulu Nation, but you listen to rap, it's really like puzzle pieces. And if you're listening to different songs and different artists, you're understanding the geography of hip hop, like where people are landing in the spectrum of hip hop, and also where people are connected to the history. And that is a form of poetry, you know. And so I think, I mean, to be honest, I think my rap career did not really go very far. I mean, I was, you know, so like I was very much in the underground space for a decent period of time. And like there was some stuff bubbling, but I think I got to a point where I was like, there are a lot of things happening in my brain, and particularly the turning point was Ferguson. You know, the Ferguson uprisings in 2014. And me feeling like writing 16 bars for a verse and 8 bars for a hook, and like finding a producer in order to like, so I could source some beats in order to say the message, felt very limiting as a construct. And it felt way easier to just write an essay about a thing with a bold headline and then bring in some of that more prosaic language that existed in the rap, sometimes having some level of like a rhythm and a cadence in the essays. And that felt more attractive to me because it also just gave me more runway. I could just speak more about a thing, and it wasn't like at the end of 3 minutes and 16 seconds I could write a 1,200 word essay, I could write 900 words, I could write a book, there was ways that I could pull levers with the language, and then so even the Twitter at the time and like Instagram posting, that just became an extension of that. It's like, how am I extending the things that I've learned in language and wordplay, but more importantly, like the messaging. The message has always been first and foremost important to me, at least in my later years. Like early on when I was rapping like any of the stereotypical rapper at 15 was rapping. It was like
my son,
girls, guns.
My son's like writing his own rap, like he's writing poetry and he's trying to rap. And just this morning he's just like he's copying, right? He's practicing.
Yes.
And he's like, I run out of breath. I want to be able to like extend my
very
breath.
Hard.
And that's and you know, you can tell him like that. That's what punching is for. Like when you go into the studio, like no one tells you that. Like you record a rap song, you think your rappers are just recording straight through. No, they're like,
okay, but
punch that in. We're gonna stop here. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna punch, and I'm gonna record the next 4 bars. Like you're not rapping the entire,
right,
like it's rare, like you're not rapping the whole 16 verse. Like there's a process in the recording that and again, that's an art in and of itself, like learning how to record and learning. Like I remember when I first started rapping and I was recording, I was doing what your son was doing. I was rapping the whole song, like the verse, then I'd be like, hey, hook, be out of breath,
and then he's like
and so, but so much of that is you learn breath control. You learn.
Well, I was telling him, you know, I was a yoga
teacher,
teacher, and I was like, I'm going to help you because I can teach you, you know, some breathing. But this is also good to know.
Yeah.
What is your son rapping about? Girls and guns?
I hope so. That's how you start. That's how it starts.
I don't know. I'm not really.
Because I can't imagine your son rapping like, you know,
not guns.
It's probably it's more. Listen, when I was first rapping, it was about love. It was about love, and it was like you talk about the things that you're seeing. I mean, that's what hip hop is. It's like went outside to school. I don't care. Playing the food. Like you just.
My mom is late. Like,
literally. It's like my mom doesn't understand. I got a plan. You know.
You know what's funny is like he does not like Taylor Swift. He never has. Like he just doesn't like her music. He's just, and he goes on this like thing about like all she does is like. She dates guys, and then she like I think she dates them in order to have all this drama, and then she makes a song and like wins all these Grammys.
Also, he's doing diss tracks.
I like that. Yeah.
But then that was like to your point, like that's what you're doing in rap too.
Yeah, I mean,
right? You're telling your stories. You're giving your, you know. So, I mean, like you just don't like the way it comes out through certain genres and certain people.
That's true though. It's you're just talking about the word. I mean you know you think about. You think about the message, like the one of the first big, I guess you want to call it, like hip hop records. It's like, you know, broken trash, broken glass everywhere. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm telling you what I'm seeing. You know, it's like the education that you're not getting in school and like in the average school in this country, right? And I think even further, it's like it's the education that is connected to the things that mirror my experience. So when I'm hearing Melly Mel rap about this, I'm like, oh, I know what he's talking about because I grew up around that. This is relevant to me. Taylor Swift isn't relevant.
I was
to me
actually
in
just
that
going to
way,
ask you, do you like rap from other cities? Like,
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, oh my God, Scarface. I mean, some of my favorite rappers are not from New
Hussle
York.
Is he from LA?
Yeah, Compton.
Yeah. So do you?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
Kendrick.
Kendrick, Andre 3000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's rappers who Ice Cube at one point, not anymore, but like, you know, and unfortunately sometimes I saw Saul Williams. Someone posted a video about Saul Williams talking about this, where rappers have kind of been praising wealth and folks like Trump for years. Like you can listen to old rap songs and it's like making money, being a capitalist is very much a part of hip hop. And so, and then there was a point in time where there was like friction. Like, so you look at the early 90s and the Pan-African movement. So you're hearing Queen Latifah and X-Clan and artists like Poor Righteous Teachers, who I mentioned earlier, who were really talking less about making money and more about like taking care of your health and your well-being. How do you raise your seeds, your kids, of course, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like taking care of your environment and like that kind of stuff, you know, which is also why I gravitated to spoken word poetry as well, because it gave me, again, more room to dissect things in a way that hip hop I wasn't seeing at the time.
Because you talk about that also about Black capitalism and how Jay-Z was a role model for you, but then he, like, with Barclays Center, you know, destroyed Brooklyn essentially. And so how do you reconcile that being, can I say anti-capitalist?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
anti-capitalist. For sure. A lot of our friends are, by the way. And also wanting a fruitful and abundant life and doing your art and getting like financially compensated for it. Yeah,
I mean, like the big distinction I think we have to make is like who is being taken advantage of, like and how they're being taken advantage of, and who's in control of that. You know, like operating within a capitalist system is not a thing that we have a choice.
Right.
I mean, I think what we can do is we mitigate harm as best as humanly possible. And so when we talk about divesting strategies and boycott strategies, it's like, what products do we have in the home? What products are we putting on our bodies, in our bodies? Who are we buying things from? Who are we supporting? And we're gonna fail at times. You know what I'm saying? Like I saw it in an interview, Rory from like a popular podcast show. He was like, you know, he had mentioned he was boycotting Starbucks at one time, but then he's like, I feel like a hypocrite because I use Verizon. And Verizon has Israeli connections. And I'm like, he's like, do I not go without Wi-Fi? I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, no, you don't go without Wi-Fi, but you also don't just go, okay, well, since I can't boycott anything because everything is connected, I'm just going to do what I want, which is generally the malaise that we fall into, which is,
like, if it can't be perfect, I might as well give up. And perfectionism is a colonial mindset, right?
And that framing is super important. It's like the striving for, like, if it can't be perfectly done, then it doesn't get done at all. And it's like nowhere else in the world do we do that for the most part. But when it comes to radical thinking and thought and a tactical approach to liberation, it's like it's not like you're picking and choosing, but what can I do? What's within my capacity and what makes sense? Like, okay, do I limit the amount of Nike I'm wearing? How am I showing up for my community? What can I boycott? Like, I don't need to drink Starbucks. Like, why? Especially if you live in New York. And I think,
like, ew.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
So many other options that are so much better, superior, literally.
But like, we go to the Target conversation, and like, you know, we think about Fred Joseph's approach to, hey, don't buy my books at Target. It's a prime example of how we utilize our platforms in order to like engage in a way that increases the likelihood for people to want to be inspired to get liberated, right?
Do you think also it's not only about the action, but the conversation that happens from presenting the option of taking the action?
Yeah,
you know, like
absolutely.
Somebody may not be able to fully divest from Amazon Prime for whatever reason, like maybe they can't leave their homes, maybe, you know, like,
absolutely.
But they are thinking about it now and they can apply it in different ways. Do you think that counts?
It absolutely counts, and I love that framing because it's true. Like, if you can't do it here, that might inspire you to do it someplace else. Because I think, and it kind of going back to something we were talking about earlier, the lack of nuance that we bring into a lot of these conversations is also the problem. It's like, I think. And in context, like, Starbucks is not the only coffee place. Like, there's Dunkin' Donuts. There's, like, you can make your own coffee. There's other things, but like a Target for some people, that's where they buy their groceries, right? And so
it's the only option,
right? And so I would love for you to be able to divest from that. But if it's not going to be Target, right? Or like, how do you limit what you're getting from Target? One, and then two, within that microcosm, that microsystem of like boycotting, divesting, wherever. What else can I be thinking about? Is it like the toiletries? Is it, and again, certain places allow you more room. Like again, in New York, there's a privilege. There's so much privilege we have because I can just really pick and choose where and what I'm going to be divesting and investing time and energy into. If you're in the Midwest somewhere like in Omaha, like you got what you got, and so you're gonna have to go online, but instead of using Amazon Prime, I don't know, do you use Instacart? It's more expensive, and I think those are the levers we get to play with. But that happens, I think, when you present people options, because then people can then decide and decipher between which feels appropriate. I think
a lot of it in this moment is just challenging what we just have taken for as like the thing.
Absolutely.
You just take that. Just questioning. Because that's the thing that's really missing is in our like ability to think critically. Because we're just used to being told by the news.
Absolutely.
This is how it is. Being told by the movies. Like this is what you should care about. And all this.
This is what you should do.
And now we're really in this moment of like questions. But it can be frustrating because we're waiting for answers. Everyone has different takes that like the answers are opposite, and you're just like, But I do think it's about like the discourse happening, right?
The conversation matters, and I think about it. I think this has been coming up often for me when I think about Mao's leadership when like even just like the Communist Republic. It's so much of this starts with educating the working class first before you start moving forward to more work that is radical and revolutionary. Like before people are picking up arms and guns, you have to educate people. And so we're moving in these ways where we're not taking the time to have the conversation about the thing because we want to do a thing, right? The Amazon Prime kind of like ideology, like the expedience in which we're looking for a thing to happen without actually following the steps and procedure required to enable the thing to happen in the first place. But that starts with the conversations. It's listening, hearing what people need and want, in investing in that conversation, and then building a strategy around that conversation.
You talk about community a lot, and you even host these, what do you call them? Let's Get Free talks in Brooklyn. I have to disagree with you a little bit because I don't think I do believe in community, but you have to come correct. Like I don't think I can be in community with everybody because not everybody understands, specifically white Americans, what that entails. They come from an empty space expecting that we're all just gonna give, and then they just like extract and take. And so how do you define community? I
mean, I think it's like to that point, right? Part of what I try to do, and what I try to do is mitigate, right? Like if we're trying to mitigate harm, like harm is unavoidable in the sense that people are going to hurt us in some way, shape, or form. People we love, like partners, friends, our kids, our co-workers. Like people are going to say and do things, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that are going to make us feel a type of way, and I think that is okay if we are building a framework that allows for safety and trust, because safety does not mean void of harm, right? I can put my kids in a playground and you have like whatever that cushioning it is, that they put on the ground so our kids don't break their necks. The foamy stuff. Our kids run, but they have teachers watching them. Wes can run, fall, hurt her knees. And like you create these boundaries for safety and yet and still, right? And so for me, community is just about creating space for safety. It also is about creating space for conversation and learning, because not everyone is going to be on the same accord. And I think that's the thing we struggle with. We want everyone to have the right language or the appropriate language or the path, or everyone has to be doing the same things. And I'm like, everyone is on different journeys. I think what we get to do is ascertain whether or not people are being intentional with the work, or people are willfully trying to harm folks, if people are being held accountable and first holding themselves accountable, right? And then community also gets to hold people accountable. So if you invite these right persons into the room or into the space, community gets to also say, hey, what you just said or did, if like the same way we would think about letting cishet men into the space who are not there. Like I think we you know, this kind of came up in the conversation like during the Palestine fundraiser. It's like not everyone, I don't expect everyone in the room to be able to hold space for grace, but I think what we can do is elect certain people who have conflict resolution skills, who can help navigate the thing, because community does not mean conflict avoidant, because I think that lends itself to the perfectionist like colonial mindset of this, like you gotta have it right, and it's like not everyone's gonna have it all together, but I have to be willing to look at the context in which we're operating in. So like, what is this person's history? What are they coming in with? What is their background? What is their learned behavior? And if I'm in community, I have to be invested in helping that person or those persons unpack. And not everyone is going to have to do that, because not everyone has the same levels of capacity. You know, but like that's also too where community comes in. Where it's like, okay, well, Leah doesn't have it today, but Laura maybe does. If Laura doesn't have it today, well, Joél might. If Joél doesn't have it, well, maybe Fred does. Or maybe none of us have it. And maybe this person is also not willing to do A, B, C, and D. And then that's when we have a broader conversation about whether or not this person needs space away from community in order to like think through their actions, you know, like responsibly.
So what is the value point, or what is even going to hold that person there? You know what I mean? Like, is it a shared value on Palestine? Is it a shared value on human rights? Because what I'm hearing is it doesn't matter. Not that it doesn't matter, but you're more open to them disagreeing and having different perspectives. But what is like the anchor then? It's
humanity. Because I mean, you know, I think there are general points of someone calling this a war in Gaza is a problem. Why are you calling it a war in Gaza? I would love to have a conversation about that. There's a difference between that person and the person who's just like, well, the person who's coming into the conversation is like, I think a two-person statehood is the way to go. I'm like, okay, vehemently disagree with that, but there's a difference between that and saying, I want Palestinians to burn. Right? Like we don't.
There's tears.
But like, you know, but seriously, Lord, like we struggle with that. I think even, and this might be touchy, but even when I think about like the Me Too movement, right? Like when I think about there's abuse and then there's like inappropriate behavior, right? And so like I think when I think about harm across the spectrum, when I think about racism, I think about, okay, is this a microaggression? Do I know that this was racist? And that's scary. That's a scary conversation to have, because you don't want to leave like gaping holes for people to kind of just weasel their way out of accountability. And also, if we're painting everyone with the broadest of strokes, it leaves no room for the nuance. And we can't say we want nuance, we want liberation, but only in these spaces that we feel comfortable with, which is this is what Democrats tend to do, right? I think leftists are way better at that, but even in leftist circles, it can very easily become like, here's our siloed way of thinking, and if you think Kendrick Lamar's performance wasn't performative, then you don't get it. And it's like,
this is what the left is so good at doing, the constantly splitting, you know, and then
that's why our movement never goes
anywhere. I know, and the right, you know, who are so aligned and so strong, like they're just like laughing at us.
Because like we're like, we'll hear the word and it's like a dog whistle for us. Like someone might say a thing and it might even just because they're speaking out of turn or they don't have the language, and that doesn't mean we excuse it. It's not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is like, hear the entirety of the message and then go, okay, I see where you're going with this, but let's talk about why I think this is inappropriate, as opposed to demonizing people. Because in no world does demonizing a person work. If I'm considering, if we're in a community and if I'm in a relationship with you, like literally, like if we're partners, like say you're my romantic partner, demonizing you in that context would never work. And you know it wouldn't work, but we treat everyone else like we're not in relationship with each other because we're like, oh, you're just a stranger. And it's like, well, no, that stranger has a dramatic impact on how you show up in the world. Like this stranger might be a migrant. This stranger might be the person that's going to serve your partner coffee tomorrow. You don't know that. And so part of that is, how do we hold space for the nuance and complexities of our humanity without immediately running to like shame and guilt and denial and blame and judgment in that way.
How do people shift though? Because I feel like that's the default way. That's the shame, all of that, which is energy of the ego.
Absolutely.
Like that's like our default in this society, and it's a really big ask and a lot of work to shift.
Yes.
I mean, I guess like the first step is you have to be aware of it and want to, explore a different way of moving.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing I struggle with most is like, how do you make the unaware aware? It's the thing I talk about often.
Care.
Or care. And you can't. Like, so my focus is either the people who are on the fence, who are like, I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure. Or the people who are like, yeah, I'm down. But the person that's like, no. I'm like, why would I waste time trying to convert you into the thing? Like, you are clearly telling me that this is not, and you're not ready for that conversation. Maybe you will be. I can like give you some information. You know what I'm saying? It's like a Jehovah's Witness. Knock on your door here. It's gonna give you this thing. You know what I'm saying? You make the choice. You can go to hell or not. But I'm just saying, if you don't take this, I'm not gonna see you on the other side. But here you go. And then give people the option and opportunity. But there are folks who just do not care, and like this is why I get frustrated, even in corporate spaces where it's like, you have an empathy training, and the people who normally show up to the trainings when it's voluntary are the people who actually care. The people who don't are like, I don't need this. Either I don't need it because I think I'm empathetic, which clearly I already know you probably do, or you're like, what do I need empathy for? Those are the people you're trying to reach, and then you make it mandatory. And everyone goes, the people who didn't want to show up are still going to show up and be unhappy. But at least they're getting the information. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe it'll catch up to them. But so much of that is it's a slow grind, and it's daily conversation sometimes. And that's why that's why local community is so important to me, because broadly speaking, I can't talk to every single white Republican every single day. We're too far. But if I'm in conversation with one person in a coffee shop, that change or framing of that conversation and that mindset, ideally and hopefully that person then brings it to their community in Omaha. I don't know why I keep going to Omaha, but it's just like, I just think about
Omaha's calling you.
I just feel like this is mad. It's like there's like an overabundance of white people there. So like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like
the Midwest.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Cornhusker town. Like that's where they be at. So it's that, like the reciprocal echo effect of that, of that one conversation, the impact of that, and so I just focus on one person at a time if I can, and you do that every day. You know what I'm saying? You build that muscle. Hopefully that person carries that energy. They're building that muscle as well, and then like it's a slow process. But the Panthers were moving in a way that was very intentional and very intimate, and like
they
grow.
knew their role. They knew their purpose. That's why I said Fred Hampton is a Virgo. I was like, Virgos know what they want to do, and then they execute it with a plan. I was like, we need a Virgo to lead the revolution.
You did a whole reel on like the Virgo in a lot of revolutionary leaders, right? And there were so many that had a lot of Virgo. I don't know if
I focused on Fred Hampton because you could see how he was very strategic, and he was focused on health. So he had all these health programs, like free food for kids and free health care, and that was what was so threatening to the state, because if you offer all these things, then you don't need the government.
And I think to your point, you keep in mind like the relationship he was building with the weathermen at the time. It's him knowing that poor downtrodden white people were just as vulnerable to like capitalism and to like white supremacy. And so he was thinking about race, but Fred was moving in that same way that Dr. King was moving before he was assassinated, the same way Malcolm was moving before he got assassinated. It was like, poor people, like race and poor people, like race and class, right? Like they are inextricably,
but they were socialists.
Absolutely.
Because they knew that you had to have the working class all banded together, which is why he also worked with the young lords and and that's what was really threatening, because it's like you get all these working class people together, then it's very hard to control them and manipulate them.
Which is, and it's interesting you bring up the young lords, because if we're thinking about the ramifications of hip hop and culture, like the young lords then become like members of the Zulu Nation, which really are the forefathers and forebearers of hip hop and culture. Like hip hop starts as a radical movement. Its roots it's rooted in radical movement, right? Young lords are like, I forget the young gang member who was murdered. And like that was like a transitional moment for a lot of the gangs in New York City, and so those gang members became b-boys. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like there's the practice is interwoven into like how we think about revolution, you know. But I think a lot of that gets lost in like the Amazon Prime hurry, you know.
Do you think that we are this generation's, like, maybe we shouldn't call ourselves like the Black Panthers, but years from now, do you think that we are that movement?
No, I don't think we're doing enough. I think we're too scared. I don't think we're.
What do you think is the thing that we need to do then? Burn shit down.
I mean, yes.
Storm the Capitol.
I mean, you know.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. You know, supposedly. You know, ideally, yes. You know, and also we have to be able to reimagine what that looks like. I don't think we don't all need to be on accord, but I don't think enough of us are in accord. Like, so when you look at, you know, them showing up and wearing pink, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
and so, but but you do that and it's like, you think that's enough. And it's like, that's not enough.
Yeah.
Granted, you know, we can point, I forget, was it Belgium? Where they threw all those bombs, where like they threw bombs in like the chambers or some shit. Yeah.
I just saw that this morning.
Yeah.
Was it Greece or Belarus?
It might have been Belarus, but like the that could happen here. But I also don't think people understand how much of a grip the police state has on us here. Yeah. America's very different. It's a very different political system. It's a very different police state. So like people like to compare other places. Like, look what they're doing there. And then like, I don't think folks understand also too how deeply rooted capitalism is in like our society as opposed to other Western nations. And so folks have jobs that they want to protect. Hakeem Jeffries, that fucking dirtbag, is like going on a book tour. Yeah. You know, and he unfortunately, like him, person like Richie Torres, like these people don't give a fuck about
Eric Adams,
a criminal. Like, criminal, like party goer.
Yeah. And then what's his name? The other criminal is trying to run.
Yeah, Andrew Cuomo. Like it's a bunch of
nobody asked for this.
Nobody. A bunch of capitalist criminals wearing Israeli pins and so.
Ew.
But you know, when Eric Adams is giving this talk about him and Jesus, and you hear black women in the background like, like they're applauding it. There's a large contingent of folks who are in alignment with the approach. There are folks who probably saw them wearing pink and was like, yeah, give it to them. And it's like, none of this is rooted in like actual law and like actually fighting fascism and actually countering the narrative. Like the idea that Dems have is, oh, if the Republicans are making this a culture war with language, then we'll do it too. And it's like, yeah, but and also there's a plan. They have like an actual plan that I hate, but it's a plan that other people.
They're very clear on the plan.
Yeah, organized. And like there's no. Our plan is to not to be as bad as the Republicans. That's like what the Democrat plan is. So like the Panthers were doing, there was like an idea of excellence. And granted, there were a lot of, like there was misogyny, there was homophobia, there was a lot of problematic shit happening within the Black Panther Party. But then there was such a progressive movement and understanding. I think the New York Working Families Party is doing a really good job of that. I think there's the Socialist Party in New York that's doing a good job of that. We just need more people listening
invested,
in that work.
Well, I was just telling my family that if they like the administration and this country doesn't see us as human, why are we following their laws? Why are we paying taxes?
Who did your parents say to that?
Federal departments. My mom was like, then you go to jail then, Laura. It's like, what are you talking about? They're so appalled by me. But literally, doesn't that make sense though? Yeah. Like, what you're gonna defund every federal government. Why are we paying federal taxes? If you don't see me as human and I'm just like a body that you want to like ban everything, then why am I following your rules?
And that absolutely, I think the problem we have, so like even when we think about the economic boycott or like the general strikes that we were having at the height of, and very much still present unfortunately, like the genocide happened in Palestine, and of course the genocide happened in Sudan and the Congo, I mean shit, Haiti, everywhere. But it's like, if I walked out of my job, it's like, I'm striking, it'd be like very like a Jerry Maguire moment. Ain't nobody else walking behind me.
Right.
because we have not educated the populace enough.
Yeah.
So like when you put forward an economic boycott, people are just seeing the flyer. There's no information really explaining why this matters, because I saw that after the fact, which made complete sense to me. It's like you're preparing the people for a potential mass boycott with this one boycott. Some might disagree with that, some might agree with that, but the education behind why the thing matters is just as important as the thing that we're doing. And we keep missing the education piece. And not everyone is getting the same information. And so, because we just think if it's online, then it's available. And it's the communal aspect of us sharing resources and information, which is why Let's Get Free, the thing that I'm started, was important for me, because I wanted people to hear from each other in real time, not like based on the algorithm, you know?
Also, people don't know, like, who's going to catch them.
Yeah.
Like the Jerry Maguire moment. They're gonna walk out and be like, I don't have community now. I don't have health care. I don't, like they don't. There's just so much fear, rightfully so, frankly, because that's like the system that it is built, and that's why the piece that you're saying a lot about the education and the work to come together in community, that has to really come first before, like, let's just boycott everything and let's, like, it's just,
or at least work in tandem.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to have a boycott, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
But I think it goes, again, to the attention span thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, like, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like I talk about why it's so important to do, like, the 3.5%, the nonviolent form of resistance, is because it only takes 11 million Americans to get on the same bandwagon.
Yeah.
And if you think about the Montgomery bus boycott, that was 380 something days. And I think the problem is Black people have their identity rooted in being Black. Asians have, Asians are a monolith, but like Koreans have their thing. We're all like segregated. We're all siloed. And back in the day, revolution started through like a connected identity or spirituality. Like the Haitian Revolution started with a voodoo ceremony, but we don't have that in America, the U.S. Americans. I think it's going to be healthcare. Personally, I think it's going to get so bad that I think we're all going to band together because we're all going to die. But I think that's the problem. Is like we don't have a shared identity.
Yeah. No,
who wants to fight for America?
That is an excellent point. I think too that with that it's like we don't have that identity and I think capitalism has robbed us so much of that. I think back to this TikTok that someone had shared. And it was like, they were talking about college, and essentially they were like, you don't miss college, you just miss having a walkable community.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think so much of the disparate nature of like liberation and radical thought and theory is because we're also spread out. To your point,
so
like
true.
we are siloed. So you could go watch Grace and James Lee speak at some center in Oakland or something along those lines, and like people would be sharing that information, and also those people in that community were also from that community. I think about, and not comparable, but if you think about some of the block parties that were happening in Bed-Stuy over on Tompkins over the summer, it started as like that was a neighborhood community thing, and not to say like there's a problem with it branching out, but you go 2 or 3 years later where it's so popular, people from Harlem are coming. It's like who don't know the community, who are not there. They're not there to shop at the vendors. They're there to go look at the fine young human beings showing up there. Which, not saying there's a problem with that, but I think there's so much disconnect between like communities and culture, and because a lot of that's because we're not sitting with each other anymore. We're not talking with each other anymore. We're not listening to each other anymore.
I mean, that's what you have created with Let's Get Free.
Thank you. I'm trying.
I mean, I'm always like, oh yeah, I want to definitely try to make that.
Yeah, there's so many amazing people that come through too.
And just like, it's even just being in that space and being like, there's other people who want to be here, who like got over here, on a Friday night and set all the things up. And it's just like, there's something so deeply like reassuring when you just know there's other people who care in the same way. Yeah,
and I started it because it was like I wanted to be around other people.
Yeah.
Who I was like, oh, there's a thing that there's a thing that I want to unpack with people. There's like questions I have about like people's processes, and also too about how people are getting free in their own worlds, and then also too, hopefully, that is providing an access point for other people to think about.
Would you ever put that like on YouTube Live?
People ask. I get a lot of questions about the live experience, which I like. I record the sessions. Like they're being recorded. They're being recorded. Audio.
Right.
And you know, and what I've started doing, and granted, I only did one. I sat with my homie Mikkel in December for like a virtual version of it last year, because I'm like, there are people who are not in New York, or people who are disabled maybe, and are looking for other opportunities to engage with community that maybe they can't do offline, which I completely understand. But my goal and my want would be for other people to start their own Let's Get Free.
Right.
Like, start your own Let's Get Free in Omaha. You know what I'm saying?
In Omaha, we're looking at you.
Omaha, if you're
Or
listening.
even like Kim Saira's event a couple weeks ago that you both spoke at, Soul Space. I mean, imagine that. A lot of people were commenting like, "Oh, I wish I could have been there. I wish I lived in Brooklyn." Da da da. And I'm like, well, you maybe do it in your own town.
And that's the thing. It's like because what we do is we look for leaders. You know, we're looking for them. It's what I was talking about. Like, we're looking for, oh my God. And I get it to a certain extent. Like, I'm sure, like, you love hearing from me. I'm appreciative of it. I'm appreciative of it. And also, I want you to feel compelled to do your own Let's Get Free in Flatbush if you want to, or in Fort Lauderdale. If like, find a local spot that can show up as like your third space. That could be the library, it could be a coffee shop, it could be a record store, it could be anything. Hold space for people. Get some chairs, rent some chairs, get like family members and friends to help out. Who do you want to talk to? Who do you want to hear from? What do you have questions about? And if you have questions about it, you don't have to actually ask me. You can ask the person in your community who's an organizer or an activist who understands the demographics and how your neighborhood works, and have that conversation with them. You don't need me for that. You know, like the Black Panther Party also worked because you had different Black Panther parties across the country. Started in Oakland, but then you had Hampton in Chicago. Like there was a vitality.
Different chapters.
The chapters worked and functioned because there was a guiding principle, right?
There's a framework
that they all could agree upon.
Maybe you could start a framework for. I'm just kidding.
I mean,
no, I do find it though that people are waiting for a leader, because we live in a patriarchy where it infantilizes people.
Absolutely.
It's so disempowered.
They need they need the permission. Like, somebody has to be like a boss. Like, you do that job, you do that job. You know. Whereas it's like, no, you gotta like light a fire under your ass. Like, what are you waiting for?
It's me lighting the fire.
Should we do the rapid fire?
Yeah.
Ooh, rapid fire.
So, obviously, in your book, you divulge that you're a Capricorn.
I do. January 10th.
January 10th. Okay. Do you know your other place? Do you know your sun, your moon, and rising?
I think I'm pretty sure it's Aquarius and Sag, but I'm not sure which one is which. I think my moon is Sag. And my rising is Aquarius.
Can you know if he tells you a time?
Well, you're definitely like,
place?
yeah, I could look it up for you, but you're definitely like a mutable person. Just the way that you see this world, and how you're always like, we need to change the definitions of things as we go along. So I could see that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What's another question? Oh, what are your red flags? And it could be like when you meet somebody, or your red flags, or like
what are my red flags? I don't have no red flags. I mean, some people would argue that me being polyamorous is a red flag as a shit-head Black man. So I'll just put that out there. I think.
Why?
Well, I think there's a perception problem around polyamory in general. I think people confuse polyamory with polygamy all the time. Polygamy is men who marry multiple women. Polyamory is not about men or women. It's just about holding space for multiple romantic relationships
at the same time.
And like those, and I want to clarify for folks that like romantic relationships can also mean friendships. Like I have intimate romantic friendships, you know, like
intimate romantic friendships.
Yeah, and romance is not, our brains generally go to romance through the lens of like sexual intimacy with another person, as opposed to like y'all's friendship is romantic.
Oh my God, we need to have another podcast episode about this, because I love having this conversation, because when people ask me what is my sexual orientation, honestly, like, I don't know at this point. I'm going to be 43, because I could be attracted to somebody, like sexually attracted, but not want to have sex with them. I could be attracted to somebody, not sexually, but just attracted.
Yeah.
And I can also just like somebody because, you know, we get along, but then want to have sex with, you know, there's like so many different layers that it's like, people are always like, what's your sexual orientation? Who do you like? And I'm like, I think everybody, honestly. Like, I'm not really sure at this point.
So again, being boxed into binaries.
Literally, because I'm just like, I think I'm just attracted to souls and getting to know somebody. And when I find out something that just like ding ding ding, you know, head heart and crotch, and I'm like, everything. Hello.
Are you thinking about Luigi again?
Oh, Luigi.
So funny, because like my mom's like, he's a criminal. I'm like, allegedly, and that would have.
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
And that wouldn't matter
anyway. So
he did something with his white man privilege.
He did.
He's attractive, very attractive.
not you, the camera. Luigi, if you're watching. Right, assistant.
I'm gonna write him in prison.
Oh my god!
But I love this conversation, and we talked about this actually when we first met, the polyamory thing, because I think that's like beautiful.
But I mean, I think some people take it as like not non-committal. What we were talking about before we got on camera,
making an excuse for
you just want to sleep with a bunch of women, and it's like, it goes back to exactly what you talked about, which is romantic intimacy and romantic relationship could just mean holding hands with a person. It could mean cuddling. It could mean like we do this thing with our friends where it's like, you have the girlfriend who like, yo, we're just gonna go out and have a good time. You might have the girlfriend that like, oh, I really want to go to like this beautiful panel or conversation with. You might have the girlfriend who you're like, we're gonna go do this art shit, or we're gonna go to this like rave. And sometimes you meet the person who encompasses all those things, and sometimes you don't. But I have friendships, I have partners, like and I'm committed to all those people and those experiences. So that, I mean, I don't consider that to be a red flag, but some might consider that to be a red flag. My red flag, though, for other people is a lack of curiosity.
I know, that's so weird, right?
Yeah, it's like
it's like bothers me that you're not curious.
Like, and it's the attachment. That's directly connected to like the attachment to the binary, and not like, oh, you think you're a man, that's gross, or you think you're a woman, that's gross, but more like there's one way of seeing the world, and the world is not black and white. There are some things that I'm very black and white on, but a majority of the world is gray and neutral, and I like to play in that neutral space. And you don't have to play in that neutral space, but I don't like when people presume or assume things about me or other people or experiences. I want people who are curious about the world and themselves too in that way.
Not that you ask, but people's red flag of me is I ask too many questions. They're always like, why are you so curious? Like, what, like, why are you asking me all these questions? What are you, like some secret detective? And I'm like, what? I just want to get to know you. I'm just curious.
I mean, I will say it's the intensity of the question. It's like, so,
the directness.
So like, is that the one you cheated on? Like, whoa, Laura, relax. And you read the book.
I can't help it.
Is that the one?
I'm just like an intense person.
It's a good intensity.
Is that the Aries? Is it the Aries?
I think it's my Scorpio and my Aquarius. Like, I think two of them together, I just ask a lot of questions. And
I love that though.
Ask very deep questions. So it's like off-putting to some people who are like, whoa, like, settle down.
I find it really comforting because I'm like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
Like, there's something just like...
Thank you.
I'm more uncomfortable when we're just like talking about the weather or like the, the things. Like, that's just like makes me kind of like, ugh. I mean, unless we're genuinely being like, oh shit, it's so whatever.
It's so warm.
But when it's like there's nothing else to talk about, then it's just like that actually.
This is another thing. Nothing to talk about. What? Hello. There's so much to talk about.
Hello. Everything. But like, and like that's the. I mean, kind of piggybacking on that. It's the. Like, I know when I'm in a conversation with a person where I'm doing more work than I feel like is necessary.
Yeah, it's draining.
So like you're like.
What is that?
Teeth.
Yeah.
What is that? What?
So it's like how was your day? So it's like like how was your day? It was cool.
And
what did you eat? Did you get hit by a bus? How was work? You hate your boss? Like, tell me. I don't.
Do your kids do that to you sometimes though, where you're like, ask them like, how was school?
Oh my God.
They're like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I'm like,
Anything happened?
Lila, what did you? She's like, no, it was the same as it was yesterday. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Tell me what happened. She's like, oh my God, Dad. I'm like, well, you're gonna appreciate it when I'm dead. That's my excuse. I just throw.
I said that to my older one too before.
Yeah, like I
You're
try
gonna
to.
miss talking to me when I'm dead.
I tell her Lila every time she just want to give me a kiss before I tell her good night. I'm like, all right, when I'm dead, you're not gonna be able to kiss me. So just think about that. Good night. Just leave the room.
Okay, so one last question. If there was no such thing as capitalism, what would you be doing?
Everything that I'm doing right now, except more abundantly.
Ooh.
I mean, like I'm doing everything. I'm doing everything that I want to do.
Yeah.
I wrote the book. I rap. I record albums. I was able to put my immediate family in a position where folks feel safe. Like we have a place to live. We got food to eat. You know what I'm saying? I have a job that, like, you know, for better or for worse, it pays my bills. You know what I'm saying? I get to have beautiful conversations with really dope people. It's like there's not really much that. There's nothing I wouldn't want. I'm doing everything that I want to do. I would just want. I want the opportunity to do more of it in bigger ways. And so, like,
bigger platforms.
Ideally, I'm always want to keep Let's Get Free at Milk and Pull. Like, we've had conversations about, like, what if it expands? More people are coming, and I'm like, that's cool. Like, if more, like, we will cap it because it loses its intimacy.
I was gonna say, I feel like when you scale something, it loses its flavor.
Yeah, there was a talk. You're absolutely right. There was a podcast I was listening to, which I feel like I'm just prefacing by I'm not a bro in that way, but it's like it's the diary of a CEO, and it feels like.
I was like, is this Joe Rogan?
It sounds like a very bro podcast. I forget the dude, but the dude that was being interviewed is the dude that wrote the 48 Laws of Power. Mm-hmm. That's very much like bro. It's like, oh, I'm gonna read a book about Machiavelli. Like, it's like that kind of bullshit. Yeah. But in the podcast, he mentioned something that I think is really important because I think about this all the time, and even when I think about Milk and Pull, the space where the conversation Let's Get Free is hosted, like they have 2 locations. They don't want to branch out. Like they've had conversations, but you lose some of your flavor, pun intended, right? When you have less control over the intimacy of the product and of the experience.
Something inevitably gets watered down.
Absolutely. And so if you're a business, and I don't think of myself as a business, but like through the lens of business thinking, expanding the thing also changes the thing in and of itself. And so you have to make a choice. Like, do you want to grow in that way? And how do you want to grow? Do I want to grow in audience size, or do I want to grow in reach and potential? And so I can imagine other Let's Get Frees in other cities, right? That kind of growth. Yeah. But that's what I want. I want more abundance.
It's challenging, like the supersizing of everything.
Absolutely.
Which is like built into Americanism.
Yeah, so like, let's do Airbud 5. No, let's not do Airbud 5. Airbud was
Nobody asked for this.
Airbud was a classic. I don't need part 2. You can't do a Malcolm X2. He's dead. Like, I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know the dog dunks. Like, I get it. Now he's dunking in Africa. Now he's dunking, I don't know. Like,
there is something to be said about like fulfillment and being satiated and not needing more.
Or like go back and revisit the original thing and see what depth and what other interpretation you can pull from it.
Go back and revisit the original thing. That is my advice to people. Or like, listen, it's consumption. Like, we are over and the media feeds into it. It's all capitalism. It's all capitalism. It's all white supremacy. It's all patriarchy. And so I have what I want. I'm doing all the things that I want to do. I just want to potentially, I'm saying less, but I want to do more of the things that I'm doing. But just continue to be intentional with the work and just reach more people.
Thank you so much, Joél.
Thank you.
Such a beautiful conversation.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Airbud 5 is it? Thanks, Joél.